In this video, we'll show how to load a mass family and place it in a project. We'll see how to create mass floors from levels within the project. We'll show how the Model by Face tools work to develop a more detailed model, and we'll also see how to update the model after the mass family has been edited. I have the exercise file Model by Face open, and first we need to load in a mass family file and place it within the project. So we'll go to the Insert Ribbon tab, and from the Load from Library panel, we'll click the Load Family button. You'll need to browse to where you have the exercise files saved, and then select the Mass Build-in Family file and click Open to load this into the project. Now to place it in the project, we'll go to the Mass and Site Ribbon tab, and from the Conceptual Mass panel, we'll click the Place Mass tool. We have an alert to let us know that Revit has enabled the Show Mass mode, and this temporarily makes the masses visible throughout the project, as generally they are hidden in the views via the visibility graphics. So we'll click Close to continue. Now looking at the type selector, we can see we have the mass building family that we loaded. However, going up to the Modify Place Mass ribbon, we can see that on the placement panel that it's currently Place on Face, so we need to change this to be Place on Work Plane. And now coming into the view, we can see we have that mass, and we just need to click to place this in the center of the view. I'll click Modify to finish placing the mass. And now from the project browser, we'll open up the exterior 3D view. And in here we can see we have the 3D mass and also the levels that have been created within the project. When working with a mass family, mass floors are used to divide the mass into slices at the levels defined in the project. They contain no actual geometry, unlike the floors that would be created using the Floor tool with floor system families. They can be used to help analyze the mass by providing areas and dimensions of each floor that could be used to calculate the overall areas of the building. The mass floors remain dynamic as the levels and mass family are altered, meaning we can quickly compare options at this early design stage. To create the mass floors, I'll first select the mass, and then from the Modify Mass ribbon tab, on the Model panel, I'll click Mass Floors. And now we need to select the floors through which we want to create the level, so we'll check all four, and then click OK, and immediately we can see those floors have been cut through the mass, and that they align with the levels that we can see in the project here. If I select one of these floors, we can look at the properties palette here, and we can see that we have parameters here for area, perimeter, and also the volume of those floors. Now to attach model objects to the mass to create a more detailed building, we will use the Model by Face tools. So on the Mass and Site tab, on the Model by Face panel, we can see that we have tools here for Floor by Face, Wall by Face, Roof by Face, and Curtain System by Face. And we'll begin by creating some floors. So we'll go to the Floor by Face tool and click on this. And now looking at the type selector, we can see we have the generic 12-inch floor type selected. And from the Modify Place Floor by Face ribbon here, we can see we have Select Multiple enabled. So that means we can now come into the view, and then just holding down the mouse button, we can drag across with a crossing selection to select all of those mass floors. And now from the ribbon, we'll click Create Floor. Straight away we can see now that we have those physical floor slabs created around the actual mass floors, and zooming in here we can see the 12-inch thickness of those floors. So I'll click Modify to finish placing those floors. And now we'll create a roof for the building. So from the Mass and Site tab on the Model by Face panel, we'll click the Roof by Face tool. Now looking at Type Selector, we can see we have the generic 12-inch roof type selected. And beneath this in the Constraints panel, we can see that we have the Picked Faces location set to be faces at the top of the roof. And this means that the top of the roof would sit on the face, and therefore the whole roof would sit inside the mass. So we'll change this to be faces at the bottom of the roof, which means the roof will now sit on top of the mass. Looking at the ribbon, we can see we have Select Multiple enabled again. So we can come and pick on the faces that are going to make up the roof. So picking these two here and making sure we get all 6 of them. And now we can click Create Roof, and we can see now that that roof has been created around the faces that we had selected. Whilst the tool is active, we can select the top of the linked block just here and click Create Roof once more. And then we'll pick the top of the link and click Create Roof to create roofs along the main building. Now, from the type selector, I'll change this to be the generic 9-inch roof type. And then we'll zoom in a little bit and we'll select the 2 faces on top of the canopy here, and again click Create Roof to have that roof created over the canopy. Now we'll click Modify to finish creating roofs. And now we'll show how the temporary visibility of the mass works. So going up to the Mass and Site ribbon tab, on the Conceptual Mass panel here, we can see that we have the Show Mass Form and Floors enabled, and this is enabling the temporary visibility of the mass. And if I click on this, it will change to Show Mass by View Settings, which means it's actually hidden because it's switched off in the visibility graphic overrides, and hence we can just see the floors and the roofs in the model. We'll click back on to re-enable the Show Mass and Mass Floors, and we can see that that's now visible again. Now we'll place some walls around the model. So from the Mass and Site ribbon tab, on the Model by Face panel, we'll select the Wall by Face tool. In the type selector, we'll choose the Exterior CMU on Metal Stud Wall type. And looking at the options bar here, we'll change the location line to be the wall center line, which means the center of the wall will coincide with the face of the mass. There's no Select Multiple option on the ribbon, so as we click on the face here, it will create the wall that's attached to that face. Now we can continue to pick the walls around the model, with each one that we select having a wall traced around it, until we've picked all of the faces that need the walls on them. And finally, we'll just add walls to the end of the canopy here to support the roof. Now I'll click Modify to finish the Wall by Face tool, and we'll select the Curtain System by Face tool from the Mass and Site tab here. And looking at the type selector, we can see that we have the 5 by 10 foot system selected. And on the ribbon, I'm going to disable the Select Multiple option by clicking on it, which means now that each face that we select, a curtain system will be created, similar to how the walls were created. So I'll select this face here at the ends, and straight away we can see that curtain system is created. We'll do the same with both sides of the link block here. And now, orbiting round to the end of the building, we'll click on this face at the end, and we can see that curtain system has been created. Now, for the inside of the canopy here, I'll go back up to the ribbon and click the Select Multiple option. And now we can pick the 3 faces inside the canopy here that make up this system. And then we'll click Create System for that to be made in one continuous curtain system. So I'll click Modify to finish the Curtain System by Face tool. And that finishes developing the model using the Model by Face tools. Now we'll look at how we can update this once the mass has been edited. And first we'll need to edit the mass. So we'll need to select it. I'll put my mouse here by the edge and then use the Tab key to cycle through until we have that pre-selected, and then click to select that mass. And now looking at the Properties palette here in the Dimensions panel, we can see we have a parameter for roof height. So we'll click on this and I'll change it to be 55 feet. And then once that's applied, it will change the height of the roof. However, as we've reduced it, it's not visible because the modelled roof is obstructing it. So I'll select that modelled roof, and now from the View control bar at the bottom here, we'll click on the Temporary Hide Isolate settings and click Hide Element. And now in here we can see that we have that mass with its reduced roof height. I'll go back to the View control bar, and from the Temporary Hide Isolate settings we'll click the Reset option to bring the roof back. And now if I select the roof, looking at the Modify Roof ribbon here, we can see from the Model by Face panel that we can update to face. And when I click on this, we can see that the roof updates its position and form to match the faces that are in the edited mass. So now I'll select on one of the walls, and again from the Modify Walls ribbon tab here, we can see we have that update to face option. So I'll click on this, and again we can see that wall immediately update itself to the face in the modified mass. We can do this with multiple objects. So I'll hold down the mouse button and drag across the remaining walls and floors that need updating with a crossing selection. And now we have multiple objects selected here, so we need to remove some of these from the selection. So from the Modify ribbon tab, I'll click on the Filter tool, and now I'll uncheck the Levels, Mass, Mass Floors and Roof, and click OK, so that we now have just the walls and the floors selected that we need. And even though we still have multiple objects selected, looking at the Modify ribbon here, we can see we have the Update to Face option. And if I click this, all of those selected objects are immediately updated to the new location of the faces in the mass. So that finishes developing the model with the Model by Face tools, and we can see that that's a great way to create a more detailed model based on a mass family.